We are rolling.
We are. Shoot, man. So it's the first half of a Dudes Like Us podcast on April 8th, 2025. Shoot, man. For being April, I'm pretty much enjoying this weather so far.
It's nice.
It's pretty shitty last week. A lot of rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love the temperature.
Those spring storms, you know they're going to hit.
Perfect.
So.
No humidity for Texas. That's great.
Yes, agreed.
A lot of storms, though, man. I'm not a huge fan of that. Chuck, thank you for being here and taking care of us on the first half. Chuck's our producer. Dudes Like Us, I'm Sean.
I'm Paul.
I am Jeff.
And Mike.
And Mike, Big Mike. What do you want to call you?
Mike.
Great,
Mike, sir.
Let's go with Mike.
Sir.
Sir Mike.
Great.
Have you been knighted?
Great
He
Moana.
has.
You know.
All right. Well, you are our special guest tonight. We're excited to have you.
Thank you.
All right.
It's kind of crazy. We're going to just dive in head first. So you guys know that. Well, let's do a little backup story here. So for the guests out there, our listeners that don't know what Dudes Like Us podcast is, we're a bunch of dorks that hang out with each other all the time and thought, hey, man, what kind of narcissist would we be without a podcast?
There you go.
You know?
So we could hear ourselves at all time.
Yes.
You know, and we kind of move forward with it. We just happen to have some gear laying around, and we piece some stuff together, and we're a bunch of guys from a bunch of different backgrounds. And
So
we
by
just have,
gear, you mean bourbon.
God bless.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
bourbon,
Okay,
whiskey.
exactly.
And
That seems to be the glue that
And
pulled everything
accidental
together.
microphones for recording,
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we
sensitive
really
information.
did. I mean, we had a bunch of stuff just kind of hanging around. We had some other, whatever, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, these guys are my best friends. Producer, we're all just a tight group of friends, and we love each other. Not like that. You know, we enjoy being around each other.
It's not a weird podcast.
It's our kids are all friends with each other. They've grown up. They've gone to college together.
That's
so
awesome.
this is a big hobby for us.
Like I was
And-
able to tell Sean that his penis was out earlier, so it was all right.
It was. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it happens a
just great.
lot.
it does.
Wonderful.
Well, it likes to come out because it's usually stuck to my lower leg.
Okay.
It's got nothing to do with our whiskey.
God bless. That's just normal shit, man.
This is
So-
going to be the shortest guest we've ever had.
But we enjoy getting together and talking about this stuff, and we like talking about the things that dudes like us do in life. That there's the common denominator, and that's kind of the purpose of this podcast. Yes, we do talk about the whiskeys. It's kind of what drives us a little bit to introduce it every single podcast, a new whiskey, and try to convey people to lighten up a little bit. It's not your enemy. This stuff is good. I think people freak out a little bit too much. They pick up a glass of it doesn't matter what it is, and they're like, oh my god, I said, you're not supposed to fucking shoot it. You're supposed to like sip it, drink it, enjoy it, love it. You know,
Right.
do all. You know, you're doing it wrong.
People forget about conversation in between.
Yes,
Exactly
yeah,
right.
cigars,
Absolutely.
conversations,
Right.
music, just kind of like it's a variable in a whole equation. You know that you got to dive in head first. So. Dudes like us, we go out to these events, these whiskey events, the world of whiskeys, and what is the one you mentioned, the Whiskey Riot?
Yeah, Whiskey
Right.
Riot's coming up. Yeah, in Fort Worth.
Yep.
We were just at the Plano event in Plano, Texas. The Jeff, you're the almanac here.
I was not there.
Spirit of
Yeah,
whiskey.
but you still know.
Wasn't it the spirit?
yeah, it's something like that. Spirit of whiskey. We had it both. But anyway, so we had
Sounds
like
good.
14 vendors out there. So we meet a lot of the vendors, and we try to connect with them. We go to Total Wine every Friday. We typically try to hit Liquor King, Total Wine, and Specs, and kind of scout out for the unicorns. But they're never there. But it's
They're never
that
there.
we're fishing. We're just fishing to see what sticks.
Every now and then you'll get a bite.
Well, everything's changed now because of the economy. All the supposedly allocated whiskeys are starting to show up on the shelves
Yes.
because they were afraid they were getting tariffed from Europe.
Right.
So all of a sudden, stuff that was rare is not rare anymore.
Wow, I'm
Shocking.
can't wait to see that.
Conspiracy, huh? Crazy.
Well, I mean, hopefully this is a short-lived thing. We have no idea. We understand some of the tariffs they applied today on China is over 104, 105.
104%.
Crazy. Yep.
God bless.
The trade war has started.
Well, the reason we have our guest here is one of our many trips to Total Wine is we met
Lori.
Yeah, your local rep, right?
Right.
We got to know her. I was talking to her for quite a while, bought a couple bottles, and
And
I know
she's great, by the way.
Yeah,
Very
she-
personable.
she
Yeah.
took some pictures. I don't know if she sent them your way or not,
Right,
but
right.
A few junk pics.
Or that too, yeah. Some good dick pics.
Posted them on Instagram.
Yeah, but this was a while back, and it's been an exercise of just coordinating dates and schedules and everything,
She
right?
doesn't have a tick. That's crazy. I said junk, you nut.
God, what's wrong with you people? We're gonna have to start over.
I know, gosh.
Anyways, yeah. So she immediately texted you. I'm assuming, right?
Right.
Send us
right.
send us a picture, and he got a bunch of.
It's just been forever trying to get the schedule lined
Yeah.
up.
Oh,
tough.
it's normal. We're all busy.
We figured you're a busy guy, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You know, we're all busy. I mean, we've been kind of backed up. We've had there's just trips. Life is busy.
yeah.
You know, and I'm thankful that you're here. You know, we're starting to get a few people to show up. We had Garrison Brothers, James on a couple weeks ago. We had Jackie Mack, one of the reps for 6th Street. 6th Street, is that what it is?
Awesome.
Something like that?
6 3,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, but we're getting 1845 in Q, Lowry Crossing, Texas. We've got a couple more. We've got RD1 Spirits. They're scheduled to come out here the last week of May. So when you're out here for the May 25th Whiskey Ride event, is that
Right,
They may be out there. They may be coming down to that as well. That may
Yeah,
be
they
why
might
he's
be.
coming
It's
down.
over 1,000 people at Whiskey
Yeah.
Riot.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, well, I'm on board with that. The only thing that is it inside?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because they've got
I'm passing
got-
on that one.
hell yeah. So they got the World of Whiskeys that's supposed to be happening here in is it July 9th?
It's
Something
July.
like that.
No, it's late July.
It's July 27th. They have it. It's an outdoor venue.
outdoor.
It's a farmers market.
It's basically just an awning.
Yeah, and I sent them messages and I put them on Facebook and Instagram and I copy and pasted them. It's the same message, and I was like, I explained to them that we really enjoy your event, and you know it was great last year at the Hilton indoor, and what you do understand, and what's up with Sunday? It's on a Sunday, one.
Right.
Yeah.
Two, it's in an event down that it's outside. It doesn't make sense. What you're going to need. Read the room.
You're going to either wrap that
Who's
thing
there?
in plastic.
You've got a bunch of guys shaped like Chuck, Jeff, Paul. You know, there's
Like pears.
They're going to need like defibrillators on every wall. You know, just to revive our
Yeah, no.
dumbasses.
That seems like a surprising idea.
And
for
charge
now.
you $100 or 150 to be in the heat longer.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so that's how we got introduced to the Big Sticks distillery, and we're happy you made it here, and we've got your
Thank you.
product in front of us, and we're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, we're excited to hear your story. Because you are so you are the founder
Yes, sir, I am. Yeah.
of Big Stick.
Correct.
Bourbon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I started it, and then my partner, Joe, joined me. Joe's retired Lieutenant Colonel Marine Corps.
Okay.
I've known him for 30, 35 years. We're old guys now. But long story. His wife and my wife were friends since 6th grade.
Oh,
Okay.
So that's
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we've been each other's weddings and watched our kids grow up and yada yada kind of thing. So that's kind of how that started. But it was really, I guess, just pre-COVID. You know, it was maybe 5-6 years ago now. I had a bar just like you guys, right? And we moved into this house years ago, years ago, when our kids were little, out in Katy, when we could still drive down the street without traffic.
Yeah.
right.
And the lady that left, she was elderly. Her husband had passed away, and he had a big bar, like 100 plus bottles. And she said, I'm downsizing, moving to a much smaller place. She called my wife and said, would your husband mind if I left all my whiskey bottles behind?
Oh my gosh. And you were like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah, so because
I'm gonna have to pass.
the movers don't move whiskey bottles. They don't move guns, ammo, and whiskey.
Okay.
So all the fun stuff, they don't move.
Yeah,
Excellent.
no kidding.
Yeah.
They
So-
just keep it?
Well, either that or they throw it out in the street. Yeah, one or the other. So we said, Jared, we'll keep it. And then what happened through the years and years ago, I used to travel a lot. I was an engineer. Traveled all over the country, all over the world. And if you remember, early on the good old days in Texas, you could buy liquor till like midnight.
Yeah.
Now it's not 9 p.m. They close. You used to buy, so I used to get off the frequent flyer magazines, rip out the latest vodka of the month, gin of the month, the latest, whiskey of the month, this and that, the rum of the month.
Sure.
And I wouldn't get home till like, 11 o'clock at night on a Friday night.
Okay.
And I would drive by this liquor store and they had this stuff. So I'd go in with ripped out piece of paper from the frequent flyer magazine,
Right.
say, I want this one. And I started with the collection. So over the years, I had probably another 100 bottles or so.
Sure.
Nice.
And so I had, they were literally like 4 deep on the bar. There's no bar surface room.
Right. But you're saying they weren't all bourbons. They were rums.
Well,
and
mostly whiskeys and scotches.
whiskeys and scotches. Okay.
And bourbons. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the occasional vodka for people that don't know any better.
Right.
So anyways, my wife said, you've got to get rid of all this stuff. It's too cluttered. Throw it away. Dump it down the drain. I went, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
There's no way. So I started sipping them all. And like you guys, if you sip 10 or 20 bottles at a time, you're going to find out there's always one that you like and the rest are okay. And then you pour some of them in your, forever bottle.
Right.
You just mix them up.
Right.
Well, I decided that I could do better. And I'm an engineer, and sometimes I don't sleep much. The creative thing hit me, and the bug hit me. I said, I can do better. I said, why can't whiskey age like a nice red wine in a bottle? Well, red wine's organic, right? So you have to have organic compounds for it to age, because you could take a $20 bottle of wine, 5 years later, it's worth $1,000.
Right.
So with whiskey, it's only worth the rarity.
Sure.
My wife got me a bottle once for my birthday. Years ago, it was a couple $100, maybe for a nice 16-year-old whiskey. And I started drinking it, and I said, not bad. You know what it tastes like? It tastes like, a $60 bottle of, Basil Hayden, which is fine. It's still a very nice whiskey. And then I looked online, and it was $3,000 a bottle because the distillery went out of business.
Right.
Oh.
And they only made 1,000 bottles, and then they went out of business.
And now it's a rarity.
And there was the last restaurant in Dallas bought the $3,000 for 3 bottles, and they were selling like $100 or $200 a shot.
That's insane.
But you know what it tastes like? It tastes like a really good, Booker's or Basil Hayden's.
Sure.
Right.
And I just said, I'm just going to drink it. I'm going to tell my friends, hey, this is a $3,000 bottle of whiskey. I didn't pay that, but hey.
Right.
And so I said, it's not about that. It's about the quality. So I bought a chemistry set on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
Got the test tubes, got the, the proof meters and all that kind of stuff, and started researching. A lot of people put their mash bills online.
Yeah.
And I started mixing and blending different whiskeys.
Yeah.
On the bar. And I just figured I came up with a special one that I liked. And then I got a carpentry shop. So I went in my workshop and said, the only way to make whiskey organic is to put something in it.
Yeah.
So we're going to put it, well, why not put in the original wood that the barrels are from?
The stave. Yeah.
Right. So I looked at that and I said, well, double oaked, I'm an engineer, so I'm a simple guy. You put an oak stave in there, double oak, that's a gimmick because it's a used barrel.
Right.
They say it's a spent barrel. I'm an old guy. That means used.
Right.
Right. So it's got limited flavor. You could do that till the cows come home. 95% of the flavor is going to come from the first barrel.
Yes.
And then what they're doing now, I don't agree with. I mean, maybe I'm a snob, but now they're putting in flavored staves in the barrels. And it's like, okay, you want one that tastes like a Cabernet. Well, then buy a $20 bottle of Cabernet.
Right.
And have a shot of whiskey and then go drink your wine, with your dinner or something. But I'm not a flavored whiskey guy.
Okay. And you mean being finished in something like a wine barrel,
like a Cabernet barrel.
Correct.
Okay.
All that, yeah.
So you're not on board with the different types of finishes that they're doing. Okay.
Well,
I respect that.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So you can do French oak, you can do Amburana,
sure,
and some of that's okay. I mean, that's not bad, because it's still theoretically an original oak.
Right.
Right. So you're really
But you're not a fan of the wine barrels.
Not really. No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
The cognac barrels or the port barrels.
Well, they got everything now, right?
They get everything.
I think some of the like the red wines, that whenever they add it to a red wine a barrel, I'm going to use the word muddled. It takes a bourbon that's crisp and it kind of muddles it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
In my opinion.
Well, you're going for a different taste, but I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
So anyways, so that's just me. So I just said, let's just take a piece of oak. And so what I did, so here's the first piece of, geeky knowledge.
Okay.
Even though we joke, we say the size of your stick matters.
Right.
It does, because the surface area ratio of the stick relative to the liquid in the bottle is the same number as if the bourbon was still in the 53-gallon barrel.
Interesting. Okay. Yep.
So I tried to mimic the aging process by saying it'll do it at the same rate.
Right.
Now, legally, you can't say aging. We found that out because aging only takes place in the barrel when the barrel expands and contracts.
Right.
But then you lose the angel share. So with us, we put in a brand new piece of wood. It's not a used stave.
Okay.
So because it's brand new, it's got fresh resin, and it starts the flavor process all over again. So they call it the finishing process.
Sure.
But it's even better because everybody else is doing this. Their barrels are still expanding, contracting, and you're still losing the angel share. So
Sure.
with us, we seal it in glass, and literally we keep the angel share from the second go round.
Right.
So we trademark, we make the angels thirsty.
Right.
So that's going to be on our next round of T-shirts.
That's
Very
actually
nice.
pretty good.
Now, do you char the?
That's why it says TM. That's okay.
Do you char the stave?
Yes, I designed the machine to cut the sticks. I designed the machine to char the sticks on my own. Designed it and built it.
What level char is it?
So relatively speaking, probably a 4.
Okay, good.
You know, if you do like, I mean, it depends on how you classify. If you do
Right.
like a 5 something, it's almost like it'll break.
Yeah, it's
Right.
alligator, yeah.
So it's if you think of, in my mind, like searing a steak, got a really good char on the inside, but you've got to have some of the wood not charred on the inside,
Right.
Right.
on the outside versus the inside. So,
Right.
and you have to have that because if you just take those spirals and you toast them,
That was my next question regarding
not for me.
the shapes of them.
Right.
What drew you to the shape of this one versus the spirals?
So the spirals, it's hard to calculate the surface area ratio. So first of all, what's unique about us is I started by calculating the surface area ratio to get that right.
Mm-hmm.
So wood, all natural wood, has about 140 chemicals in it. So here's your chemistry lesson. So pay attention, boys and girls.
That's right.
Learn chemistry. So about 140 chemicals. Out of that, maybe 4 of those are fructoses, wood sugars,
Right.
which is a complex carbohydrate, right? So it's a bigger molecule than sucrose or glucose. It's just a bigger molecule. Exact same chemicals are in strawberries, blackberries, blueberries. That's
Okay.
the chemical name. It's just fructose. So as you know from cooking, when you char sugar, you get caramel,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
right? Well, the other resins in there, the stuff that keeps the resin from hardening into a rock, they're called phenolic acids. They're a weak acid. That's the chemical name. Everybody else knows them as aromatics.
Oh.
Oh, so there's multiple phenolic acids. Those are the exact same chemicals that are in vanilla beans.
Nice. Okay.
So that's where the flavor comes from. By all natural charring, a 100% natural, as God made it, a piece of American white oak, you get multiple layers of caramel and vanilla.
Right.
Now, in addition to the char, as you know, since if we're all old guys, you know that in the caveman days, if you got sick eating poison berries, you would eat charcoal, from the
right.
fire.
Yep.
It would absorb the poisons. Well, so likewise, whenever you distill whiskey, there's always some, they call them cogeners, they call them different kinds of phenolic acids, whatever, but there's different kinds of chemicals in there that give you the headaches, and they're not good.
Right.
Right. Well, the charcoal actually filters those out at the same time it's adding the good stuff.
Right.
So it adds the good stuff, takes away the bad stuff.
So does that mean like hangover free?
Well, I mean,
to a degree.
indigestion,
test that theory today.
indigestion free, because
That's actually interesting.
some of the bourbons I've drank, and maybe just because I like too much Italian food or pizza, gives me a little bit of a heartburn,
Sure.
and this doesn't.
Interesting.
And I can
Okay.
only speak for myself, but right, I mean, for me, that doesn't. I tell people that, and they say, "Oh, it's smooth." I said, "Yeah, well, just wait. You're not going to get any heartburn either."
Yeah. Which was an unintended and
Correct.
probably
So it's awesome.
An awesome.
It means you can have more.
No, what I'm saying is you didn't design it for that purpose. You designed it to continue the aging process.
Correct.
But with that comes a nice byproduct.
Nice little
right?
consolation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So what happens, and again, we made it 95 proof for 2 reasons. One is the marketing, if you will, but we do 5% back to military charities.
Yes, that's awesome.
So 95.5, and again, this is all subjective. If you're a bourbon connoisseur or bourbon snob, it's all personal preference.
Sure.
Some people like 110, 115. I'm not crazy about that. That's more alcohol than flavor.
Okay.
It's just math, right? You get over 100 proof, you're buying more alcohol than you are flavor, for
Okay.
me personally. So the other thing, engineering-wise, is that if you get too high of a proof, you dilute more of those resins and acids that are in the wood, and it can make it taste a little sharper.
That's in your staved bottles, right?
Well, this is 100% natural American white oak, so
Yeah.
anybody would have that. So just for me personally, and like not to insult anybody, but
Yeah.
I don't like the 115 proof because they taste harsher, I think, in my mind.
Interesting.
Because the higher alcohol is a solvent, and it dilutes even more of those resins and chemicals that are in there. Now some people have said they want
Now
one.
you're specifically talking about the staves that are in bottles, right?
Correct.
Okay. So if you
Yeah.
just have because I mean,
Well, no, it
we had,
also
like-
applies to the
any
higher
barrel.
barrel
Any
proofs.
higher
any
proof.
barrel.
okay.
Yeah, because like we're talking about, in theory, anyways, you're supposed to distill bourbon at 125 to 130 proof, and some people overproof them. They go to 140
Right.
And, well, as bourbon ages, in my experience, you always lose proof because it evaporates, because the alcohol evaporates faster than the water.
Right.
So a barrel that's older generally has a little bit less proof.
Right.
By 4 or 5 points, not just volume, but also proof.
It's a wacky thing. You never know what the heck's going to happen.
And it's interesting because we have tried many that have been 120, 125, 130, 140.
Right.
You know what I mean? So and I've always assumed that in certain situations the alcohol, the angel share, right, evaporates, and in certain situations the water does. Which if the water evaporates before the alcohol, it must be in some sort of climate or some situation because the proof does go up. Right.
Well, bourbon is so subjective, right? It's the most subjective thing, which is why you got guys having 100 different bottles.
Right.
And that's okay with me as long as I'm one of them.
Right.
I don't expect, so that's great. Just add us to your shelf in your collection.
Well, Big Sticks is easy to drink. I mean, for guys that typically strive off that 105 to 125 realm, somewhere in there, it's easy to drink. It tastes great. I'm enjoying it. I can drink this.
Well, I tell you,
I can literally drink this. This is really good.
What we've noticed is that when we're drinking the 110s, 15, 20s, and we dip down to the 90s, the flavors aren't there a lot.
They thin out.
The intensity is not there.
Because you're used to more dilution of all the chemicals from the wood.
Right.
Yeah.
But this has a lot of flavor to it.
It does.
We've had a couple that...
kind of reminds me of the Michter's, right?
Yeah, the Michter's 10 had a lot of flavor at 95 proof, and this has a lot of flavor as well. And I think a lot of it goes to that stave that you have in your bottle continuing to work.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and that's the big thing. If you look at this, I got a before and after, but before it looks like iced tea, and afterwards it looks 4 shades darker.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh wow.
So yeah,
you're saying that's straight out of the barrel.
Correct.
The one on the.
Yeah.
So how long do you age it in the barrel?
So great question. As we get more mature as a company, we get a little bit older barrels. We're at like 3.5 to 4.5 years right now.
Okay.
In that range.
Well, it's very respectable. I think most of them are around 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, some are 2.
I mean, to be a straight bourbon, you need 2 years,
at least
right?
2.
So legally, again, a lot of people don't know this. Maybe you guys do, but legally, to be called bourbon, it has to be number 1, made in America.
Correct.
Yes.
Number 2, made from 51% corn.
Correct.
And after that, you can do anything. The other 49% can be whatever you want.
Right.
Then it has to be aged in a brand new American white oak charred barrel.
Yes.
For 24 hours.
Yeah.
And that's called a young bourbon. I call it crap.
Yeah. I know that.
we call it shitty too, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the word straight legally means 2 years old.
Yes.
So obviously, the thing about straight bourbon is a lot of consumers don't know this, and I tell folks, if it says straight bourbon on the label, probably means it's 2 years and 1 day.
Right.
Because after that, like,
they want the bare minimum.
To be legal,
box.
right? To check the box, and so yes, I mean ours does. We did new labels because the trade people said it's got to stay straight bourbon because otherwise it doesn't have an age statement on it. It's like, well, it doesn't have an age statement on it because my connoisseur says it tastes like a bourbon that's much older than 4 years.
Right.
I can't say it tastes like a 10 or 12-year-old bourbon, even if it does, even if the sommelier says that, because legally it's not.
Right. Because it hasn't been in a barrel that long.
Hasn't been in the barrel. So all those laws are designed to protect the big guys from the little guys. So all the craft guys can't explain what they do on their label.
Right.
Because a lot of it's not legal. Every single word on our label had to be approved. And in fact, when it says straight bourbon whiskey finished on oak staves, we had to have every single word has to be at the exact same font and the exact same typeface and everything. You can't change italics for one word.
Really?
Or it's illegal.
And who makes these rules?
The federal government, the Fed, the TTB.
Why the hell do they have
like we were
saying?
Like we were saying earlier about
opening
industries over here. The regulations.
They're nuts. They're nuts.
Just destroy you. That's why.
And for what purpose? I mean, come on.
We couldn't say. Originally, I said ages continuously in the bottle, and that was rejected because it only ages in a barrel. Why? Because that's the federal definition of aging.
So you changed it to finishing instead of
finishes,
aging.
And that's fine. We did another release. It's a very limited release. We did a rye whiskey and we did a rye with cinnamon. Like I said, I'm a big believer. I'm an engineer. I'm a purist. I don't believe in flavoring anything.
Right. We agree.
You want sugar water, and go buy sugar water.
Yep.
And
if you
make a great old fashioned.
You got to have a lisp.
So I got a cinnamon stick, right? The circular cinnamon sticks. I bought them the stick by the pound. So now I have 2 sticks in the bottle.
Right.
So we added the cinnamon stick to the rye whiskey, and it came out great. But it took us over six months to get label approval because we said, straight bourbon whiskey or straight rye whiskey, flavored with a cinnamon stick. And they kept on coming back and saying, like flavored with cinnamon. It's like, no, it's a cinnamon stick.
Right.
And we had to actually call them. We have to get the lawyers on the phone with the feds and say, it's literally a stick. It's not caramel coloring. It's not cinnamon syrup.
Right.
It's not, your daddy's, the whiskey that they claim is, cinnamon flavored. It's like, no, it's not that.
Right.
And
you can say it.
Oh, Fireball.
Fireball.
Yeah, that stuff's
for $20 a
waiting to
liter.
happen.
Right.
It's a party starter, but it's not anything real.
Yeah,
really.
maybe if you're 20,
it's like, So I'm too old for that. I'd rather have one really good glass of whiskey than 4 or 5 cheap shots. So
So you obviously were taken totally by surprise by the label.
The labeling's insane.
Like you weren't anticipating that at all.
No, and then Texas. This is funny. Texas, whatever the feds approve, Texas will approve, and the feds do it for free, but it costs you a lot of time and legal work, right? But the feds do it for free. So Texas says, if you have federal approval, you send your label to Texas, they'll approve it, but they're going to charge you $25 per label. Why? Because they can.
Per label?
Yeah, because they can. Because they want
the design of the label.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right, okay.
Not like per bottle you sell.
No.
My first thought was, I was like, what?
Per brand. If we do a rye, it's $25 for that. Right. Rye, on and on.
Everybody's got to make their money.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
So tell me about the statue or the image.
Okay.
On the bottle.
Everything about this is symbolic. Everything is hidden. If you first of all, what we did is we designed, like I said, the concept of the ratio is the most important thing. So literally, we designed the bottle with the stick first. Then we figured out how to surround that with a liquid, the bourbon. Then we figured out what kind of bottle would fit. And there's one bottle in the entire world that will do that, and that's this bottle.
Nice.
So the bottle itself is tall and square. Most people have seen it.
Oh, yeah.
It's not perfectly square. It's actually hourglass. You put 2 bottles together, it looks like a Marine standing at attention with a trim waist, square shoulders.
Interesting.
If you know, the cap is gold. If you notice, the cap is gold.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever seen the dress blue Marine Corps uniform, the gold buttons are about the same size as this. We couldn't put the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor on it because that's trademark infringement.
Sure.
But the gold buttons on the Marine Corps uniform are about the same size.
Excellent.
That. So that's how we started. Then we said, well, that's not good enough again. So I'm anal retentive, I admit. Every single color on here is an exact Pantone color match from the Marine Corps style guide.
Okay.
So the red's an exact match per serial number. The blue and the gold are exact color matches for the uniform. Odin is the All-Father spirit in the military, so we got a little mythology going on there.
Okay.
He's holding a spear. My nephew just retired in Austin, Lieutenant Commander, Navy SEALs, so the tip of the spear.
Very nice. You said your son?
My nephew.
Your nephew?
Nephew, yeah.
Okay.
My other niece is Lieutenant Colonel Air Force, so I get the 3 birds flying in formation.
Beautiful.
Really, really subtle stuff. Obviously, our company name is Semper Fi Brands. Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So big stick. The whole symbolism here really represents the military, and if you want to sum it up in one word, like people who do branding, say, your brand, you have to sum it up in one word. What's the one word that defines your essence? And I said, bravado.
Okay.
That's us.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We got a big stick.
Yeah.
And the label's red, white, and blue, and we're not apologizing.
I love it.
And so it's bottled at 95, and that's why I tell people we donate 5% back to military charities.
So explain that one a little bit more.
Sure.
The 95, I mean, I totally get the 5% to charity, obviously.
Right.
But 95.
So 95, we tried 80. We tried 85, 90, 95, 100, 110. And I found that for me, again, personally, subjectively, that I think it made it the smoothest out of everything at the 95 proof.
Oh, okay.
At
I
80,
can see that.
At 80 proof, you don't, I guess, dilute or enough of the alcohol as a solvent. You don't dilute enough of the flavor to get the flavor.
Well, like Jeff said, the 95 works. Like the I hate to bring up, but I want to compare it to Michter's 10 year. I mean, Michter's 10 years of extremely desirable bottle. This is comparative to the Michter's 10 year, and both are fantastic. This has a lot of flavor.
A lot of flavor.
And I don't know, and frankly, I don't think I would enjoy it at 80. I would actually be curious to see what 110-20 tastes like.
Well, we are experimenting. I've got a 116 proof that's in the bottle now for several months. So I'm going to get actually I have two ladies that are kind of sommeliers. I'm going to get them back together and have them taste it after they've been sitting for a couple months.
Two ladies. What do I need to wear a dress to get in that?
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I can make another trip up here. But I can make another trip up here. We can do the 116.
There you go.
Private tasting.
Love to do that. Love to do that.
I'll wear a kilt, not a dress.
Now, it's already in the bottle, you said? Ready to go, or is it still?
It's R&D, yeah. I made the sticks. I've even tried, like maple. And the people that I talked to said, yes, you get a little bit of the maple flavor, but it's so mild that it's not enough.
Right.
And, people are buying like the maple Crown Royal, which is Crown Royal with maple and sugar.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm not going to do a $30 bottle of whiskey.
No, forget that.
I'm just not going to do that.
Right. I get you. All right, so you were holding up what it looks like when it comes out of the barrel.
So what it comes out of the barrel, it looks like
it's got that light hue.
Every other bourbon in the world, right? Just like any other bourbon.
Right, and you're saying that's 3 or 4 years of age in the barrel.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you start to finish it in the bottle.
That's surprisingly not that dark with that little vial you brought.
Right. It's pretty light. So the one thing that's interesting to me is, if it's been in the bottle for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 18 months, when does it stop producing?
Great question. So again, the engineering perspective,
Sure.
right? I'm brutally honest. The stick only has so much resin to give.
Correct.
Right. So in my humble opinion, I'll always say that after about a year, it tapers off.
Okay.
But in 3 to 6 months, it gets like the bell curve, right? You really start to max out in 3 to 6 months. I was shocked. The color in like 2 weeks, 1 or 2 weeks.
Amazing.
It's just boom. The color goes like nobody's business.
So you hold the bottles
for a couple months.
Before you actually.
And if it's in the Texas heat in the warehouse, we don't care. It just helps. It's all good.
That's extremely unique.
Because nothing of it, Texas doesn't hurt it. It actually helps it.
Right.
No, but the concept of holding your bottles in your warehouse,
it's more expensive. Yeah.
That's very unique because nobody else does that, right? They bottle it and they sell it.
And they sell the crap out of it.
But you're holding it because you're aging it.
We want quality.
Right. That's very interesting. And you hold it for 3 months, you said?
About. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thereabouts. Yeah.
And then it stays on the shelves. Well, it's not going to stay on the shelves very long.
No.
So,
no more than another 2-3 months on the shelves.
I must have missed a bit. Who chars the staves?
Me.
You do.
Yeah.
So
you design the equipment.
You've got the process, and is it like on a conveyor that you cook those pizzas
it's
or
part
something?
of the secret weed hopper.
You'd have to kill him. Please do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive in as close as we can without giving out any secrets.
Again,
campfire. Or?
Well, so when my wife and I first started dating, she was the English major, I was the engineer, and I build stuff. My grandfather was a carpenter on one side, electrician on the other side. So my dad taught me all this stuff. So I can build homes. I built missiles for the government. That was my background as a research engineer. I built missiles for the government, did computer simulations, did this and that. I worked in advanced research for General Motors.
Right.
With either computer simulations or in the test engineering lab, on and on. So her nickname for me was MacGyver.
Right.
So when we first got married, she'd pull stuff out of the Spiegel catalog, a piece of furniture, and she says, "Can you make this?" And I was an idiot. I said, "Yes."
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay, so for the next month or two, I'm in the garage in the workshop making this table or this hutch for her because it's like, okay, oh well, yes, I can do it. So now I'm stuck.
Right. Yeah, you can't,
so
you can't back out of that.
I wasn't smart enough to say, oh, well, gee, that's going to require a special tool. It's like, oh, man, I'll go buy the tool. That's cool. I get another tool.
And then she never bought anything again.
Tim Taylor.
You made everything from that point forward.
Pretty much. Yeah, I've made all our bedroom furniture, on and on and on.
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
Why aren't you doing the new kitchen right now? You should be down there doing that.
Yeah, I just told her I'm retired. I'm retired.
Amen.
You put your foot down on that one.
Yeah, I said, no,
Yeah.
kitchen cabinets, those guys have specialized machinery and they crank that stuff out.
Sure.
It would take me a year to do what they do in 30 days.
Well, you're busy making bourbon.
You got to pick and choose your battles.
Yeah. Well, I think you made a smart choice. In fact, I think I'm going to probably pour a little bit more in my glass in a few seconds.
Be my guest.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of poor, go ahead.
Oh, well, I love your connection to the military.
Sure.
You did not actually serve in the military?
No,
your father did, and you have family, obviously.
So, yeah, my dad. So, let's continue. So, my dad, my uncle, and my nephew were in the Army.
Okay.
If you notice, Odin's holding the Captain America shield
right
on the label.
That's Army.
So, I didn't know this till later. My father told me before he passed away, our family has gone through Notre Dame. So, we've got a long history there. I didn't know how long. And so we went back there because my son went there, and he actually was in the marching band at Notre Dame for a while. And so on the campus of Notre Dame, our first relative in the United States, she was a Catholic nun.
Okay.
She was a nurse, came over during the Civil War. And during the Civil War, the medical personnel were awarded military commissions. So she was an Army captain.
Oh, wow.
And so her gravestone is in the Notre Dame Cemetery. It's a military gravestone from like the 1860s.
That's crazy.
I didn't even know that. Yeah.
Especially women.
Women. Our first, Army captain, nurse, and Catholic nun, all the above.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So that's pretty cool. So it's in honor of everybody in my family.
Gotcha.
What I did when I got out of college, I took this job with the company, and I was so fortunate because I traveled all over the world to all these military bases to talk to people who were designing missiles or designing airframes or blowing stuff up.
Right. And so that's always exciting.
It was really cool. It was really cool. Yeah. So I got to meet all the cool people, and then, God bless them. They're all engineers and nobody knows their name.
Right.
And a lot of these folks were PhDs, and it'd be Dr. Joe or Dr. Mary. They didn't give out business cards.
Right.
They called you didn't call them. And it was the honest to God truth. We never knew their phone number. We never knew their full name.
Yep.
We didn't know who the heck they were, but we just know, Dr. Joe called from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Okay, I know who you're talking about.
Right.
And they called and they said, this line in our computer code needs to change because he thinks he found a more efficient way. We just said, okay.
Right.
Because they would get into the source code of everything. These guys were better than smart.
Right.
They're better than smart.
Crazy.
So it was crazy stuff. Yeah. And the stuff we did years ago, now the young people don't even know, but now it's like, that's Microsoft Flight Simulator, but 40 years ago, that was a $50 million, geodesic dome, in the Air Force Base conducting private research.
Right.
Now it's just your kid with an Oculus.
Yeah, I remember that
crazy.
SR-71 Chuck Yeager flight program for Microsoft. That was
crazy,
badass.
Crazy stuff.
That's in the late 80s.
Crazy stuff, man.
I think that was 1987 when that came out. I was taking off the airstrip at 3.5 Mach. Wings ripped off.
Well, you were like on the tarmac nuts. Going 3.5?
Well, on the computer,
Yeah, there's some cool stuff out there.
You remember? Sean, get to dinner.
So you remember the X-Men movies?
Flying the X-Wing.
The X-Men movies, right? Xavier, he goes into that dome. Yep. Circular dome, and he looks up all the people.
Oh yeah,
they had those at Wright Pat, and it was white. And you walked into, it was a 30-foot dome, a sphere. It was a total sphere.
Yeah.
And you walked into the middle of it, just like the X-Men. And at 30 feet, your eyes can't perceive distance because it's pure white.
Oh.
And so it's like in the movies where you think you're in heaven.
Right.
If you're not holding on to something, you can fall over. I mean, you're holding on to the rail, and they would put the pilot in that seat, and that would be your simulator. This 30-foot dome, literally a sphere, 30-foot sphere, pure white, and they would put the images up, and then he would fly the fighter jet.
Crazy.
It was nuts. And you walk in, and it's like you're in heaven because there's no noise.
Right.
There's only white light, and if you don't look down at the gangplank, you can't see anything of color. I mean,
it's completely surreal.
It's totally surreal.
So it just seems like you're surrounded by white.
Yeah. You're surrounded by, and if you freak out, that's not the place to be.
No.
Because
you don't know how to get out of there.
No.
It's stuck in a round room.
No.
Can't find the door, right?
No, I'm telling you, it's for real.
They can't find the corner.
For real. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to Wright Pat a few times. The museum up there is very, very good. And my brother-in-law was a colonel at Wright Pat. He was a vice wing commander. And he's retired now, but he still goes there. Runs the Air Force Marathon, and we were just up there, as a matter of fact, and we drove by. They have a new hangar. There's 4 hangars now at that Air Force Museum. I think it's the best thing. If you guys are into the airplanes and all that kind of stuff, that's a destination you need to go see.
And where is that exactly?
It's in Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio.
The Smithsonian now has 2 museums
Okay.
for flight. There's not one, but 2.
Okay.
They have the original, but then they have one about 30 miles outside of town that's also, like, you get up close. I'm waiting for when they declassify Area 51.
Oh, yeah.
I want to go in there and see that stuff because that's really cool.
And all the decomposing aliens that they have there.
They're
Well,
more like
you know-
test tubes.
Yeah, nice.
Hey, do me a favor, Mike. Let me grab that bottle there. I'm gonna pour some. And you know,
the
There's
open
another
one's
one.
over there.
oh, that's more. I was
That's
like, that seems really full. I was like, God
Yeah,
bless. That was
it's-
8 ounces.
Oh, so let me finish with the label and the
Yes,
symbolism. We
please.
haven't done that. So yeah, on the back, we've got the ancient sailing ship for the Navy and the Coast Guard.
Okay.
So the sailing ship is floating over the barcode. So then on top of that,
That is cool.
what we've got is on the newer labels, right above the barcode in the sailing ship, it's actually hard to see, but if you look real closely, the figure is the Polaris North Star. Polaris North Star is in the center of the logo for the Space Force.
Oh, nice.
So we've got all the service branches represented.
Right. You got a
Right.
hat tip to everybody.
And kind of real subtle. I mean, you'd have to be a geek to know this, but you know, when the Marines were officially called the Marines,
Mm-hmm.
when? It was,
Oh, when were they called
Yeah.
the Marines? I do not know that history.
so it was actually 10 November 1775.
Okay.
What I know that because they drilled it into me. So it was, the Marines were formed in a bar in Boston because the harbor needed protection. So they basically got a bunch of drunk people to say, hey, how would you like to have a gun and go patrol the harbor? And they said, okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm in.
Because it's something to do different from being in the bar. So it's like they got all the rowdies and said,
Were there a bunch of Irish guys?
probably.
Yeah.
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 It's Boston. Hello.
It's Boston.
Sean Murphy. Come on. Mike Ryan. What do you think?
Right.
Can't throw a rock, hit an Irishman. So, yeah. So, but that's the Marine Corps. So the Marine Corps theoretically was the only service that was a military service before the USA was the USA.
Right.
1775, not 1776.
Right.
It took another 6 months or so for the Declaration of Independence,
Right.
which is kind of cool.
Very cool.
So yeah, so we've got Army, Navy, Air Force, Navy SEALs, even in Space Force and the Coast Guard with dual Coast Guard Navy with the boat floating over.
Yeah, sure.
Keep it simple, but yeah, simple as that.
And you donate to a number of charities as well. And
Sure.
I would imagine you have some personal ties to some of those. I mean, the list on the internet was pretty lengthy.
Yeah, quite a bit. So I mean, the easy one, Pets for Vets, right? 'Cause-
Okay.
So what they do, they're a Houston charity. The neat thing about them is, if you're a service member and you already have a pet,
Mm-hmm.
they help you train your existing one.
Nice.
Right. And so Gunny Ortiz is a friend of mine. I met him through the Marine Corps, but I didn't even know this. For the last 10, 15 years, the military does not pay for funerals. So Semper Fi 3, you can look it up. There's Semper Fi 3. I'm sure there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but 3 in Houston does the military honor guard for funeral services.
And that's not paid for by the military.
They have M1s and they have, they have the fake ammo, the blanks, right? Guess what? M1 Grand blanks cost probably more than the ones with the bullets in them.
Unbelievable.
It's not cheap. And so they have all these guns and they had some van donated. God bless these guys, because I went with them as a guest, honorary guest, to a funeral about 2 years ago in July. So we all hop on this bus. They're dressed in their dress blues.
Yeah.
They're Marines. They're 50, 60, 70 years old, most of them. And they get out in the July sun in Texas, in the middle of a cemetery, with their rifles.
Yep.
And I'm wearing a suit, I'm polite. I'm wearing a nice dress suit. And it's like, I'm sweating my brains out.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how the hell they're doing this.
And they're doing it for somebody they don't know.
They're doing it for somebody they don't know.
They're not familiar with.
And they do the flag ceremony and they give them the flag and they do the whole presentation. And, it's like, God bless them.
Totally.
And they do that anytime they're asked.
Yeah.
And it's so there's that. And
Well, it's an honor.
it's just an honor knowing these guys.
True.
Yeah, that too.
Really. They're incredible people, and they do this, and they don't ask for a penny.
Yep.
But
But they get
they
donations.
need money. They need
so
money.
that's
Yeah.
Semper Fi 3. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Semper 3.
Semper Fi 3.
Semper Fi 3. And there's so let's say the regular folk, we want
Right.
to donate to something like that because
So
it's a great cause.
Everybody's listed on our website. We don't take a dime. We just give you the link to these various places. So one of them, Joe is a big fan of jiu-jitsu. right? Okay. So there's a place he found in Florida called We Defy Foundation. We Defy teaches veterans to do jujitsu, obviously for physical therapy, for camaraderie.
Staying active, all that good stuff.
And some of them have lost arms and legs. Well, if you know jujitsu, you roll around on the floor. You don't need all four.
Okay.
Wow.
So if you're missing an arm or a leg, you can still practice jujitsu and be relatively effective.
Yeah, Paul likes doing jujitsu because he likes to coddle with other guys.
The easy ones.
I don't really. No.
The Houston PTSD Foundation. There's a Dallas PTSD Foundation. If you guys are in Dallas, look them up. They all need money. The Houston one, they take people in for counseling. Sometimes they have overnight.
Yeah.
Or week-long stays for therapy and counseling. God bless them. I mean, we donate to the charities. So coincidentally, it's good karma. 95% of the money that goes to these charities, at least that we've checked out, goes to the intended recipients.
Nice.
So the 95.5 seems like a good karma number. The only 5% is used for overhead.
Right.
So that's what's and that was a blessing too, because that was just pure dumb luck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, one thing that does frustrate me, I'm so glad that these people step up and do all this. I get frustrated that I would have assumed the VA takes care of more than they do. No. How disappointing. Is that something that Trump is going to change, or is it because is it their mission that needs to be changed? Is it their money how inefficient they are? What is the VA's problem? Why don't they take care of this?
So part of it's attitude. Elon Musk had it right. He said you have to have caring.
Yeah. As
well as competence. Yeah. A lot of these guys don't have caring because they're not directly in touch with the patient.
And they're just going through the motions.
They're just going, they could work for Medicare, Medicaid. They could work for, filling out requisitions for toilet paper.
Right.
And they don't care. They're just filling out papers. They don't talk to people.
I mean, if there's anybody that you should be taken care of, it is our vets.
So what I learned from my government experience is that the federal government has some of the absolute brightest, most diligent, hardworking people in the entire world.
Right.
And you'll never hear their name.
Right.
And then the other 50, 60% of them, what?
Probably higher than that.
Collecting
a paycheck.
Yeah. How you don't want to go into all the negatives. Right.
Can never get fired.
Right. Can never get fired.
Don't want to go in the office anymore.
Right. They don't even go into the office anymore. Well, now they do.
Don't get me started. I mean, I filed half a dozen patents, and
it takes what, 3 years?
Oh no, God, no! Long story short, but my chainsaw patent, I got the idea 5/15/15, May 15th, 2015.
Sure.
I was in the yard with my son. I said I can do better on the chainsaw chain. I designed this thing, and I found a patent attorney. Yada yada yada. I filed a little while later. Germany. This is now COVID's here. They take 3 or 4 years. So Amazon gets a patent in 6 months. Why? Because they have lawyers.
Right.
And the feds are afraid of them, so they just give them a patent. Me, I'm just a micro entity. I'm one guy.
Yeah.
Right. And so it took them like 5 years to get the first evaluation. Well, Germany was first. So the Germans came back and said, we deny for this and that reason. And then you write a rebuttal, you argue back and forth.
Meaning they had the same idea, you're saying. They were first.
So no, I filed for an international.
Oh,
so the USPTO, there's 2 tracks. You can file domestic or international.
I see.
So the PCT is the Patent Cooperation Treaty.
Okay.
This is lawyer talk.
So, no kidding.
Yeah, good God, yeah. So the PCT means you file internationally. It goes through a separate process. Well, it's first come, first serve. So Germany is where the EPO, European Patent Office.
Right.
So those guys came back and said, no, this and we argued back and forth. It took about 6 months or a year, and they said, okay, we award you the patent. They don't say award you the patent. They say you're granted an allowance. So they're allowing me to use my own idea.
Right. Oh,
it's like,
how nice.
Talk about frickin' arrogance.
Yeah.
I get an allowance to use my own idea. It's like, really, thank you so much.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Wow.
So then we went to Canada, because Canada's a big lumber place, right? So
yep.
Yeah, a lot of chainsaws.
Well, they're giving you the allowance to have ownership.
Of
that
of my own idea.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, it's kind of like naming a star.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, there is some pride in that, and yeah, there is a level of arrogance.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, if you're gonna put your flag, stab it in the ground, and say, "Hey, this is mine," I think that's impressive.
So it's like a bucket list thing. Some guys want to write a book, right? I said, I'm an engineer. I worked on all these high tech designs. I want to get a patent. on something, right? So I got that. So then Canada came back and they said, no. And I said, we said, yes. Here's why. Here's some rebuttal arguments. And oh, by the way, Germany said yes. So we made a few word changes. About a year later, Canada said yes. USA came back and said, no. We made the rebuttal changes. They went, no. They are not, even to this day, I don't think they work in the office. In what you go to the USPTO and it's vacant. And how I know it's vacant, because I know somebody that works there.
Right.
And he goes there once a month to check in to prove that he's still working.
And it's a ghost town. Yeah, I think we all.
What just happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a glitch.
That was a glitch.
A glitch in the Matrix.
Hold on.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm better now. So yeah, I know they go in one day a week to log in to prove they're in the office.
Yeah, I belched.
You know, and of course, no, I know they're honest people. They're not cheating. They go back home and then they work.
Right.
And they log in. So you can tell by your login whether or not you're in the office or not.
Of course.
Because you're on a different network.
Right.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that's the job requirement. So they go in once, and there's nobody there except maybe the janitor.
Right.
You know, and they got to turn on the coffee pot and find the bathroom, and they got to stay there for at least a couple hours, and then they log out. So it clocks in, you log out. So then you can go back, you know.
Yeah, but how nice. He has to clean a clean building.
Yeah. So
it's spotless already. So
you're paying for
anything.
We're all paying for HVAC for this huge building, and you know, don't get me started.
Well, that's just one building of many.
So
many.
So literally, this past week, I got the allowance for the USA.
Congratulations.
So yeah, and so now it goes. But we had a
8
20
years.
Well, 2025. Yeah, 2015. It's 2025 now.
10 years.
Yeah,
and you just got it.
Yeah.
Well, that's huge.
Yeah. So don't ask me how much it costs.
Right. Oh, legal fees and everything else.
Legal fees. Yeah. Because every time you do a revision, you got to pay the lawyers, right? Because
so other than the acknowledgement,
right?
How are you going to benefit? Is if people use it, they're going to pay you?
So now I have to go to the manufacturers and say, "Oh, hey, by the way." Now it's a long story, but right, I'm not. When you file internationally, you have to pay a fee for every country in the world. So you could wind up paying $100,000 if you want.
Easy.
You know, and a lot of people don't even. I know friends that have gotten patents for different firearms gizmos, right?
Yeah.
A special trigger gizmo or a special or something like that, and then China copies them and they sell it on Amazon and they go out of business.
Yes, it happens all the time.
And you could sue them, but now you have to spend $50,000 on a lawyer. And good luck suing somebody. Amazon just says, "Well, we stopped selling them."
Right.
You told us we stopped selling them, right? And then guess what? 6 months later, somebody else pops up.
It's a different, same Chinese company, not different name.
Yeah, that happens all the time. What
right.
a piece of shit.
Yeah, China is very dishonest.
So sadly, a lot of especially when the firearms, I noticed this. One of my close friends used to be a vice president at Remington.
Okay.
And I hear a lot of the inside stuff that goes on, and a lot of that stuff, because if it's a firearm, every country in the world wants to know what kind of efficient improvement you've made on a firearm.
Yeah.
Right? And so that stuff gets stolen all the time.
So, but the sad thing about that is that a lot of improvements are not making it to market.
Well, in the USA,
or they're making it to market, but nobody's benefiting.
Not in the USA. Yeah. So that's the thing. So it's funny because in the USA, what counts more is who's your lawyer.
Right.
Not if you have a good mousetrap.
Right.
And I'm hoping that some of that stuff changes.
All right. Well, we want the first prototype chainsaw.
Okay.
Do you have a waiting list?
I got the plastic 3D model here.
Okay.
It's a chainsaw chain.
Perfect. Yeah. It looks a lot like the bottle
printing.
You brought for. Oh, yeah. What is this?
It's 3D printed.
I got
it 3D printed.
You're being serious.
I'm dead serious. Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were. I thought you were shaking the bottle of the bourbon that comes out of the barrel.
It's a bi-directional chainsaw chain. It works in both directions. If it gets dull, you just flip the chain around and keep right on going. If you have an electric chainsaw,
does it sharpen itself in theory?
No. That's
all right.
So you still have to do that, but
That'd it's got about fun though.
It's got about 200 to 300% more material on the cutting edge, so it'll last a lot longer.
Right. So the whole point of this is it makes the chain you buy last a lot longer.
Correct.
Twice as long
because you're flipping it.
200 to 300% longer life. on your chainsaw.
That's beautiful.
And in Houston, I don't know what you do here in Dallas, but in Houston, the way we garden, I garden with the chainsaw.
Okay.
Because, if you this is, again, horticulture. The Chinese tallow tree is an invasive species in Houston.
Okay.
And the Chinese tallow tree sucks up a lot of groundwater, and it crowds out the oaks and the mesquite and the other. So if you buy a couple acres in South Texas, Southeast Texas, you probably have got some Chinese tallow trees.
And you want to get rid of them.
You want to get rid of them because their seeds, when their seeds fall to the ground, they crack open and they're like acorns. If you walk on the grass, it'll cut your foot. They're like razor blades.
God.
Oh my gosh, it's horrible.
What a horrible tree.
Yeah, I know. And so, you've got to cut them down. And when you cut them down and they're soaking wet, it's hard because they're very moist.
Heavy.
They're heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy as hell. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh God.
So the Chinese tallow tree, what's this thing look like? He's got a picture up here.
Oh, you got a picture? Yeah. Yeah. They're really round, pear-shaped leaves, and the bark is kind of sketchy. Is there
anything good from this tree?
Not even firewood, because it burns too quickly. Oak burns much better. So actually, it's not even good for firewood.
You can't age bourbon in it?
Oh God, no!
I would make staves out of this.
No.
Well, it looks pretty.
No.
It doesn't even.
No.
I was going to ask about toxicity of some of these woods. Have you experimented with some of these staves and you realize, oh my God, this just made somebody shit themselves?
Well, so great question. I've lost a personal story. A couple of years ago, I had cancer, right? And I don't mind saying this, but I went through MD Anderson. It's a great place. They're awesome people. I had chemotherapy, I had radiation, I had all kinds I had surgeries, yada, yada, yada. And ever since then, I didn't have COVID, but I think I've lost about probably 50% of my taste buds.
Oh, wow.
So I can't, so that's why I use these other ladies who are the connoisseurs, because I can't, you guys could probably tell me more about my bourbon now than I could 5 years ago.
That must just, that's so bother the hell out of you.
Yeah. Well, when we did the Whiskey Riot recently, we did one, right, at the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
We did one in Houston. Hundreds of people came up to us and said, don't change a thing. We love your bourbon. I'm so glad you're here. We got all kinds of reactions where some people tried it for the first time. And, the unique thing about it, the ladies love it. A lot of the wives will come up to us and say, this is the only bourbon I will drink with my husband.
It's nice and smooth.
And so the guys are shocked because they say it's so smooth.
Yep.
It's because the bottles are sexy.
Well, there's a subculture of women out there that drink bourbon.
Oh yeah, my wife's one of them.
No, but nobody pays attention to them. It's like, ladies, I'll pay attention to you.
Sure.
It's like, it's okay. Try my big stick.
Nice.
It's okay. I'm sure you'll like it.
Yeah.
So
Tell me about the piece of plastic in the lid there that.
Oh, okay. You'll see.
The
keeps
pour,
the stick
the
in.
pour stout.
So this gets back to Joe. So Joe, and again, I love the guy to death. He's more than my brother. Known him for, I don't know, at least 30, 35 years now. I don't even know how long. That's how long. It goes back years. So we're sitting around one day and we decided to have like a New Year's celebration in New Orleans, right? And so we get all dressed up. I've got my nice suit on. My wife's got her like gold dress on. We went out. We did it right? He's got his dress blues Marine Corps uniform.
Oh, wow.
At midnight in New Orleans, on New Year's Eve, we're walking around, and we look sharp, right? And so we're having fun. We spent 3-4 days in New Orleans, and then I brought some of my samples of bourbon back, to the hotel room, and we were doing samplings and tasting. You like this, you like that, don't like whatever. So I had these bottles, and he said, Mike, we really need to put something in the bottle so the stick doesn't fall out.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
What a concept, huh?
So, well, again, Joe, Joe's a Marine.
Yeah.
He went to UT, then he graduated, then he went to get his law degree courtesy of Uncle Sam, right? So he's got a couple law degrees, worked at the Pentagon for, I think, General Mattis. So he was way up there.
Nice.
His boss was a civilian, but he was the chief legal counsel for the Commandant of the Marine Corps.
Okay.
So he's been in meetings with people like Mattis and Petraeus.
Wow.
And he said, I probably was the youngest, most, lowest rank officer there, but I was still at the table.
Sure.
It's okay. It's all good, right? So he's a Marine, he's a lieutenant colonel, and he's a JAG, right? So he's wound pretty tight, and he'll probably admit that. you know? And so I said, Joe, we really don't need that. And he goes, I mean, if you look at the bottle and you tilt it over, the stick will fall to the bottom. I said, it's not going to fall out. Even if you shake it, it's just not going to fall out because of the engineering design. He goes, no, Mike, you don't understand. I know my Marines. They'll try to pull the stick out and light it on fire. So that's why we have the bottle stop. It's called an in-bottle pour spout. And
I think it's great. It worked great for pouring my drink.
You just turn the bottle completely over. It pours better than the bar spout pour, and it comes with it.
That's one of the first things I noticed when we were at Total Wine, and Lori was showing. I was like, dude, there's like a weird stopper in this thing.
Yeah. Well, the problem with some of those other pour spouts, they got the little ball bearing in there. They kind of like, has gravity, and it gives you
it ounce like half an ounce. Yeah,
it's like, come on, man.
They've got all kinds where they limit the pour. They've got the anti-tamper proof. So I learned one of the things, which is kind of weird, I guess, trivial pursuit fact. The number one country for counterfeit whiskey, you know where it is? Saudi Arabia.
Really?
Wow.
They fake, I believe they fake Johnny Walker. They Scotch. And you know where they sell it to? India. Because India is like the number one country that consumes Scotch.
Right.
So yeah, it's crazy. Illicit liquor trade is nuts. So they're looking at doing all kinds of things, but those counterproof things, they're trying to.
What they do to make it counterfeit? I mean, they put like liquid peat in there, or I mean,
I don't know. I mean,
that's crazy.
You can get a chemistry set, and you can do a lot of stuff.
Well, I know I've seen. There's been some of the big distilleries will put you'll download their app. And you'll hold your phone over the top of the bottle, and it'll tell you if it's real or not. It'll have some chip in it.
Yep, Buffalo Trace does that.
Yeah, the RFIDs. Yeah. Well, there's also I think somebody told me the Buffalo Trace bottles, they've got little dots on the glass. It looks like Morse code, but each one of those is like from a different batch. And so a different batch or different distillery. It's just
they're embedding counterfeit measures
with no label. It's actually in the glass. There's different dots like Morse code on the bottles. You can look and see that.
Yeah.
And that delineates certain distilleries or certain batches.
Well, we all saw that Buffalo Trace is underwater right now.
Dude.
You see that?
Yeah, I know.
Awful.
They're just going to charge more.
Yeah.
It's even more rare
right.
now.
So
buy
my
really
stuff
underwater?
instead.
I mean, I know there's a lot of water, but I mean, they have 6 stories,
Wow.
So years ago, if you remember, there was 5-10 years ago, there was a fire in Kentucky where they had one of the warehouses, the rack houses, went on fire.
That was Heaven Hill.
Where is it, Jim Beam or Heaven Hill?
It was Heaven Hill.
In 1996.
Yeah, we were just there.
So what happened was, I think, and I'm just throwing a number out here, I could be wrong, maybe 50,000 barrels.
Insane.
Went on fire.
There. Look at there's the flood.
But 50,000 barrels, I think, went on fire, and there was so much on fire that it didn't all burn. It ran off into the river. So the EPA came after them for pollution, for water pollution. Well, I think at the time, somebody in the business said, that's no big deal. That represents maybe a 1-day supply for us, 50,000 barrels.
Isn't that crazy?
That's insane.
That's nuts.
Well,
one day supply.
I was literally just up
the
there a couple weeks ago when we were on spring break, and we visited Heaven Hill, and they discussed the fire. And right now, they produce 1,500 barrels a day.
Yeah.
In just new distillate.
I'm sure.
And they're about to open up a new distillery, new pot still or whatever they're using.
How much was that facility worth?
It was $200 million.
Good Lord.
They built on the property there, and it will double it. So they'll be doing 3,000 barrels a day.
Hey guys, you want to work with me and make some big stick? Just give me a call. It's all good.
Well, what do you want us to do? You want us to help you char the staves?
No, I need to go national is what I need. I need a big brother to go national.
Yeah.
That's what I need. Yeah.
Well, we'll do our part.
Oh, you can drink.
We'll drink it.
Drink. That's like, yeah.
Yeah. We can handle that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our
drink all you can, and we sell the rest.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, cool. It's a fantastic story.
Oh, thank you.
And we're glad that you're here to share it with us.
Yeah.
So what a ride you've been on. And you said only 5 years ago, right?
5 years, yeah. So, yeah.
Could you have imagined you'd be, I know you've done a lot of different things, but this bourbon thing, did you think it would take off like it has, or what?
Well, we're doing great in Texas. Getting to other states is the issue. Tricky. Because sadly, a lot of the craft guys, I probably know personally of 4 or 5 distilleries who've gone out of business in the last year. So between COVID
in Texas,
yeah, because the liquor laws in Texas, what happened was if you own your distillery, you can sell 2 bottles per person per month, and you've got to take a log of people's driver's licenses, yada yada, because
that's what 1845 does.
Yeah, I was wondering. That was kind of it's kind of stupid, man.
A lot of rules.
So I'm sorry.
They favor all the big companies, and the little craft people. And the other rule is, you may not know this, but if you have your distillery, you make whiskey. Great. You can serve whiskey. You can serve whiskey on the rocks. You can serve whiskey and soda. You can serve old fashions. But if somebody comes in and says, I want a vodka tonic, what are you going to do? You've got to make vodka too, because you can only sell what you make at that distillery.
You can't sell something else.
You can't sell Smirnoff vodka.
Right.
You can't sell, Seagram's gin for gin and tonics. You've got to make your own. So that there's some guy out there like me who says, I'm the expert in making this bourbon. But if I open up a distillery and now I open up a tasting room, now I got to figure out how to make a gin, a vodka, a rum, and yada, yada, yada. Otherwise, I'm not going to get enough customers. Right. So all the tasting rooms, they're operating at a loss. And then the distributors, they say, well, if you sell it to Specs or Total Wine at, pick a number, $50 a bottle. If you sell it at your distillery for $40 a bottle, they're going to be mad at you.
Yep.
So you have to sell it the same price. Right?
Yeah, we noticed that too.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So you can't give in-house customers any discount.
Right.
Because then you'll just, make all your retail channel mad.
And you want them to come to your distillery and be excited about it and experience it and by the way, you get it for $10 off,
Yeah.
And you can't even do that.
Can't do that. You can do it once.
Right.
Yeah, but not next month.
You could throw in, glassware,
That's illegal. Actually, that's illegal in Texas. You can't incentivize
you.
No.
Well, unless it's I think it's $1 is the limit. TABC says.
I've never tested that.
Right.
I'm not interested in testing their patience with me.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Good Lord. And the reason why I know that, at least that's what it was, was, I worked a lot of bars. And we had, there were like Miller Lite, for example, used to give out a lot of product. They used to give out like football jerseys.
Right.
Right. And then they passed the law saying you can't give out stuff like that. Anything you give out has to be less than $1. So they started like giving out these little stupid.
Well, if you give it out, you have to give it out to everybody, and it's not conditional on a purchase.
Correct.
Right. So I had a friend who had a distillery in Jacksonville where Joe lives, and he wanted to get a bunch of T-shirts printed up. Well, they made a mistake. They printed children's sizes. So he had to destroy them all because you can't give a child, you can't give him a koozie, you can't give him a coaster because it's incentivizing a minor to drink alcohol. So you can't do that. Wow. So they all had to be destroyed. You can't give them coasters, koozies. You can't give them a frickin' balloon.
Yeah, but it's okay to give them the booklet to turn themselves trans.
Yeah.
You can do that to a child, but you can't give them an alcohol shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
Just put it in library books.
Well, that's a different agency, so yeah.
That's what it is, yeah.
But still, it's just, my point by bringing that up in a sheepish way was it's just the overreach of the government, from the
over-regulation
and the font of the bottles it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
How about that judge today? The Supreme Court weighed in. Was that yesterday or today? Judge Boasberg, is that his name?
Yeah.
The Supreme Court by microphone's goofing up too.
Yeah, well, I think whatever, we'll...
The Supreme Court ruled against, what's his name, Bozeman or something like that?
Yeah, they ruled against him, so it was actually a positive.
100%.
It's a positive for...
So I'm kind of curious what because he's going to bring it back up in court tomorrow, and I'm kind of curious what he's going to say.
So the Supreme Court, split hairs. They didn't rule against the entire concept. They ruled against the fact that he doesn't have jurisdiction.
Correct.
So if he doesn't have jurisdiction, that doesn't do anything on the merits of the case. So now you have to start the cycle all over again.
And who's the chick that Trump endorsed? She was
Amy Coney Barrett.
Yes, she was like
she's from Notre Dame. So she's from Notre Dame, and so years ago, like I said, my family history goes back 150 years at Notre Dame, and they used to be very, very strict and very Catholic, and not anymore. I saw somebody outside had a Texas A&M on their truck, and my friend, a dear friend of mine, 10 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, drill instructor, sniper school, sergeant Marine Corps, got out of the Corps, then he went to A&M.
Right.
and got his college degree, courtesy of Uncle Sam. God bless him, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thing. It's all good. He even says, I sent my son to A&M. He just got the ring ceremony last week.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, again, God bless him. Wonderful. But school's not the same as it used to be. They just allowed the drag queen thing. It's like, really?
I'm not okay with it.
So you got the Corps cadets on one side, and then you've got the drag queen on the other. It's like, what in the world?
This is at A&M?
In the last 10 years,
they forced it. They forced it.
Yep. They're having some problems.
Well, the alumni, everything runs on money, and the alumni need to step up and say, no, enough. Right? Otherwise,
or Trump's going to weigh in and be like, you know what? Fuck you. You're losing funding. And you know what? Moreover, does Governor Abbott have anything to say about that?
Notre Dame's got it, and I love Notre Dame. They've got a $10-12 billion endowment. Harvard's got a $50 billion endowment. Harvard can afford to give every student free tuition for the next 50 years, and so they have private offices now. They have people that just churn money, I mean, that's all they do. Harvard, Yale, 10s, 20, 30, 40. Texas, I know people that work in the Texas system was founded because they had all these royalty rights. Right. And so they still collect hundreds of millions of dollars, and A&M too. I think just recently, the politicians were saying they're going to allow Texas Tech in on the system to start splitting revenue with Texas Tech, maybe Prairie View A&M, maybe a couple more schools. Yeah. Because there's so much money going around, everybody else is saying, I want a piece of the pie.
And yet the tuition goes up and up.
And the tuition still goes up.
Non-stop.
It's a rocket.
Insane.
It is.
All right. Well, that music means we are coming to the end of the first half.
It's crazy. Time flies. So our listeners out there, check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook, Dudes Like Us God bless it. Dudes Like Us podcast.
Have another bourbon.
He had too much Big Stick.
Big Stick bourbon's good.
Yeah.
Woodcraft. You smash that like button, and thank you, Mr. Chuck, our producer, for staying on task tonight. God bless. I am a little.
Yeah, you're struggling.
So
are you staying for the second half?
Yeah, I'm staying. Yeah,
check us out.
Yep.
Okay, because we're going to talk about a lot of fun things in the second half.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna change it up a little bit, get crazy. Dudes Like Us. I'm Sean.
I'm Paul.
I am Jeff.
I'm Mike.
There you go.
We'll be right back.
See you.